There's a lot of thoughts about the Cleveland Browns offense and obviously the changes that have been made and the changes that are going to be made. We're going to break it all down here, plus some playoff talk. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, joined today by the OBR's Pete Smith, and I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. If you're not part of the everyday crowd by now, well, get on the bus, Gus, make a new plan, and subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, obviously, the big Cleveland Browns news of the week, and Pete and I, we've always done playoff coverage. Obviously, last week's a little different. The Browns are involved. We're going to go through, obviously, these weekend's games here in segment 2, segment 3. But certainly want to get Pete on here, get some thoughts as the Browns embarking now into a new offensive coordinator, and obviously a lot of questions and wondering about what exactly is going to be the state of the Browns offense going further. But Pete, 11-6 was great. And a lot of that can be attributed to the defense, certainly. But there comes a time you got to look in the mirror and, wondering where things are going. And I think this is kind of where Coach Stefanski is with the offense. And the major improvement the defense made last year probably has to have some sort of wondering if, some major changes on the offense could possibly lead to a payoff of dividends for them on the offense side of the ball.
No question that the Browns offense, given what we saw, and certainly the injury to Nick Chubb really opened your eyes as far as just how much he was sort of fixing certain things on this and allowing them to run the ball the way they were, because the running game died when he got hurt. And that was before injuries to Jedrick Wills and DeJuan Jones. Like, it was awful. And, you look back on it now, I think they led the league in runs of 0 or 1 yards. I mean, the amount of 0 plays this offense had is ridiculous.
Wasted downs. Yep.
Yeah. And you can't live like that. If you're going to, it's great. The defense was as good as it was, even though now it has to take another step, but just a bigger picture thing. It's easy to look at this thing and go, okay, we're going to bring back healthy offensive linemen. We're going to bring back hopefully healthy Nick Chubb at some point next season. And we're just going to roll with it, what we had. And you can do that and you can feel okay about it. But I look at what the Ravens did when Greg Roman had a good offense with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson and those guys were good. They were not great. And the Ravens, basically, John Harbaugh said to himself, what do I need to do to get to great? And they moved on from Greg Roman and they brought in Todd Monken. And Todd Monken, I picked that team to finish last in the division because I thought, one, the defense was going to have issues at premium positions. And I hate Mike McDonald because he was so good at getting guys to produce at end and corner for them when they didn't seem to have either one. And then the offense got good faster than I thought they would. I thought it would take more time. And it wasn't like there was no adjustment period, but they figured it out pretty quickly. And now the Ravens are in, the best position possibly since 2012 when they won the Super Bowl to win it again. And even if they lose, they still have to feel really good about the changes they made on that side of the ball. So you look at the Steelers, they're going to hire a new offensive coordinator. They can't be worse. So you are in a division where every team had a winning record and you finished second. You were so good at home, so you want to try to get the division. So you're looking at it from that angle, but you are in the toughest division in the NFL right now. So if you are not trying to get better, any way you can. And I think we saw this last year. Kevin Stefanski is relentlessly competitive. People thought, oh, he wasn't going to get rid of his buddies. And then they get rid of Joe Woods, which happened immediately. But then he waited a couple weeks and go, oh, Bubba Ventrone's available. Goodbye, Mike Prefer. And then they upgraded. He's very, very aware of what he wants to do in terms of getting more competitive. And I think this is what we should be looking forward to see. He's got to nail these hires clearly, but I think they wanted to get away from the possibility of this offense getting stale before it happened.
And I think that's great points that you're making. And I totally agree with you. And it's also hey, 11-6 this year was great. And this may be kind of the thought process of what happened in 2020. Everybody just assumed the Browns were going to come back in 2021 and we're just going to be this ultra competitive team and maybe go to new heights. But, sometimes you have to reinvent yourself on the fly. And certainly in the NFL, that is no case. So that I think is a big part of it here. And, you look at the Bengals and obviously, a lot of coaches there, getting possible opportunities. And there could be a chance where the Bengals may have to adjust in the wrong way. The Browns are looking to upgrade. The Bengals are losing people they don't maybe necessarily want to lose. And, the Browns, you look at it and, yes, when Flacco played those last few games, they were clicking on the passing side of the ball, but that wasn't the case for most of the quarterbacks this year. So, and we always thought this year was going to be a transition year where maybe this team started to become more of a pass-oriented offense. I think now it's a time for Kevin needs to find somebody that's maybe going to challenge him himself, where I need somebody to maybe tell me or suggest some things with my personnel that maybe I'm not seeing.
Well, I mean, look, there's always this element of why do guys get fired? Some of it has nothing to do with being bad at your job. It has everything to do with you either
C+ ain't good enough.
Well, that or what Kevin Stefanski wants to transition to, you don't know how to teach your coach or whatever, or you don't believe in it. It's possible that that's just not who you are. And if you're saying, well, we shouldn't do that, then he's got to move on. So that seems, I think that's a big part of this. It's not that the coaches they got rid of are bad. It's just they aren't equipped to go where Kevin Stefanski wants to go. So that becomes a major focal point. And until we find out who they've hired, we don't know exactly where he wants to go. But clearly they need to get a running game that makes sense for the personnel they have. They have to be able to obviously accommodate and maximize Deshaun Watson in a way that's going to be effective in that regard. And I think in that lens, you could sort of look at this and go, well, maybe this was done a year too late, that maybe they should have moved on last year based on what we saw this year, that like the beginning of the year, you saw plays that sort of like was this mishmash of, we thought they were going to transition to more inside zone and split zone and some of these things that really, pair well with some of the RPO stuff or shotgun and whatever. And then we get wide zone and we get the stretch play action stuff, which looked uncomfortable for Watson. It's not like I don't want him to be able to run under center play action because clearly it's very effective. But at the same time, you're like asking DeJuan Jones to run wide zone. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be physically capable of doing that. And it was a losing strategy. And like I said, too many zero or nothing plays. So that has to change. They have to be able to do that, because you look around the league and you're sitting there going, don't get, the fourth and fifth tackle thing is clearly a huge problem. But when they had Jedrick Wills and DeJuan Jones, like, you look around the league, Trent Williams has an argument to be the MVP of the league, but the rest of that line ain't very good, and they still move the ball. And yes, they have a better running back than Jerome Ford, but like, you have to be able to at least create something more than 0 yards. There has to be, just by scheme, by technique, by whatever, you should be able to get more than that. So there's a lot of things that they just got to be able to figure out that make just more sense. Cohesion, get guys on the same page, and just evolve with the game. Like, those guys have been here for 4 years, and the Browns went to the playoffs twice. They won their first playoff game since 1994. Like, I'm not spiking the football and going, good riddance. It's a bummer that guys have to get let go. But at the same time, 4 years is a long time in the NFL, given what we've seen and like the landscape changing, and seeing that guys like the Shane Steichens of the world coming up and being a really dynamic play caller, or Bobby Slowick. These are first-year guys in their new respective area, new teams. And now you're sitting there going, So what are we going to do to get better? Because on some level, you're also looking at this as what gave our defense the most problems? Because clearly we aren't doing enough of those things to other teams. We need to find ways to create easier yardage, to cause more problems, to do some of those things. And like I've talked about this. I know it gets talked about a lot. Certainly more pre-snap motion is something they need to do. I give them a small break in the sense that if you're running a lot of pre-snap motion, it can cause a lot of problems for your offensive protection. And when you are down to Jaron Christian and James Hudson, you don't want to like fool them. And suddenly you got guys blitzing off different angles because of motion and stuff. But still, next year, you're going to want to do a whole lot more pre-snap because you watched what it did against the Houston Texans. The Browns were just murdered with just moving guys around and creating easy opportunities. The Rams, the Broncos, like you saw this over the course of the year. And I think there's an element to that where you're sitting there as a head coach and you're going, we need to be doing more of these things. I want to do this. So I need to find the guys that are going to help me get there.
And there's no question about it. And, look, 11-6 is fantastic. But the point is next year to get to 13 wins. And sometimes it's, hey, these guys were great. And they got us from a point where we were a franchise that everybody laughed at to where we went to the playoffs twice in 4 years. But now it is advancing in the playoffs, AFC Championship, those types of things. You got to continue to raise the bar. And sometimes you have to make the difficult decision of these guys were good enough to get us to this point. Are they good enough to get us further? And for a lot of these guys, they've been here for 4 years. I think the Browns have found, or obviously feel, that they've gotten them as far as they can possibly go. We're going to continue on here. Your latest Locked On Browns, the OBRs, Pete Smith in for the ride. We're going to talk some playoff weekend action. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with ePay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. The NFL regular season is in the books, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet. Live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Go to the Parlay Hub. You can see what the most popular parlays are. See if you want to tag your money along with some others. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Continuing on here, your latest Locked On Browns, the OBR's Pete Smith in with your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen. Make sure you are part of the Locked On Browns Everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll take them by day. Obviously, kicking off the weekend again, Houston Texans at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens, 9.5-point favorites. Ravens, most of those guys have been on ice now, probably 17, 18, 19 days. Texans coming off a big win, as we all know, Saturday, and that's what we're going to talk about that. Pete and CJ Stroud, you go into Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, so many accolades coming his way for his regular season work. They were in a similar situation, Pete, a few years ago where this didn't necessarily work out for the Ravens. You got the young kids coming in, basically already way overachieved this year. Ravens, Texans, thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Marlon Humphrey being out is a big deal for the Ravens. Again,
that could have been the one thing to slow down Nico Collins. Yes.
Yes, these are the things I looked at the beginning of the season and said, oh, man, it's going to be tough for the Ravens. And then they just do it anyway. The coronation that's happened for CJ Stroud and this Texans team reminds me of when the Browns beat the Steelers in the playoffs. That's not to say that CJ Stroud's not going to be a great quarterback. I think he will be, but it does make me think that they are going to suddenly hit the wall here and be in a brawl of sorts with the Ravens. The Ravens defense is problematic enough in terms of the different ways it can attack you. I think they're going to have more success with creative pressures and some of the coverages they use. The thing that works in their favor is that CJ Stroud's been really good against zone. But the flip side of that is I don't know how the Houston Texans defense is going to be able to handle the Ravens offense. Their defensive line being healthy is certainly a critical component. Their linebackers are solid. Corners are pretty good. I worry, as I did when the Browns played them, I still worry about that safety position. I think that's a position that can be exploited. And I think it's the combination of them having to watch and pay attention to Lamar Jackson as a runner and Lamar Jackson as a passer. I think you can get them into some situations where get them lost in space and suddenly find openings that way. I do like the Ravens to win, but I think Houston's going to make it close. I think Houston's going to go out in a game where their fans are proud, just like the Browns against the Kansas City Chiefs a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think Baltimore ultimately ends up winning this one. I think Houston's going to go in there with every bit of a puncher's chance. And look, CJ Stroud right now, the role he is on, I'm not going to rule the guy out. I'm just not. And I do have, a little fear, a little trepidation about, Ravens being in a similar situation a few years ago. But 9.5 point favorites, number 1 seed. Look, at the end of the day, it's always go anybody who is not the Baltimore Ravens. But I think they'll get the better half of this one here. Green Bay going to San Francisco Saturday night. Obviously, Green Bay, every single thing went right for them. Sunday in Dallas, another 9.5 point favorite. San Francisco, same situation. A lot of guys on ice now for well over 2 weeks. Now trying to have to refire it up here against a team that's just young, very young in the Green Bay Packers, kind of cocky. Also with the understanding of, they don't understand that they probably shouldn't even be here just yet. Pete, Packers, 49ers, Saturday night in San Francisco.
If Jordan Love can play at the level he did against Dallas,
no doubt. He beat anybody.
They are borderline unstoppable. The throws he made on that post pattern where he throws it just out of the reach of the corner in the perfect spot was off his back foot, no less, was one of the
touchdown pass to Romeo. Oh my God. Yeah. So
that's sort of the caveat. I don't know that the Packers defense can put up a repeat performance. They obviously were the way they played that past game, it felt like their defensive coordinator was deliberately having their defense play awful for that many games to then surprise everybody and be the greatest defense of all time. I don't think that's going to be able to sustain itself. I think the 49ers offense is going to be able to keep them off balance enough to create some problems. But this is the thing. If you can you can create turnovers off of the Brock Purdy and he starts just folding a little bit, that could be where this game goes. I still like the 49ers. I think the pass rush is going to be too much, even though I don't love the 49ers secondary. I just think over the course of the game, they're going to find enough ways to get to Jordan Love that it's going to be too much to bear, even though based on what I've seen from him, his last 9 games, 21 touchdowns, 1 interception. He is playing at an incredibly high level. So he's the guy that has the chance to just overcome everything.
I think San Francisco should win it, but if you tell me Green Bay wins this game, I would not be stunned at all. Late one here, it looks like Mark Andrews will not be back just yet for the Baltimore Ravens on Saturday, according to Ian Rappaport. So just something to keep in mind here. We're going to get to the Sunday games. Your latest Locked On Browns continues. Don't go anywhere. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, where the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS is just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projection lineup, and you can watch your winnings roll in. You want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tabs of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy. so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Closing it out, your latest Locked On Browns, Pete Smith of the OBR in for the ride. We get to Sunday's games, the early game. And for me, look, Browns aren't in this. I just want nothing but madness. I want upsets in every game. I want one of the greatest games Sunday night between the Bills and the Chiefs. But Pete, if you're going the weird route of looking for underdogs or an upset or a good story, I don't know how to go with this one between Detroit and Tampa. And I haven't said a word about this. Look, Baker Mayfield was always somebody we really appreciated. Pete and I, obviously a lot of Locked On Browns episodes were done. And there is that fire in that type of player. There's that type of passion in that type of player. And you saw that on full display, obviously, Monday night. Detroit is a fun team to watch. They're going to be a team with staying power. It's not going to be played in the cold of Detroit, obviously. But Buccaneers, Detroit Lions, and the potential is there for this to be a fun game. And I think two teams that maybe some people have really clinged to here late in the season to see watch how their ride goes. But the fact of the matter is simple, Pete. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Detroit Lions, one of these two teams is going to the AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game.
It would be impressive if they go to the AFC Championship game.
Yep.
Look,
they would lose, but they might be going.
This might be the most fun game of the weekend because I think if you like offense, I think this one's gonna be the first one to 40. Detroit's corners are horrendous, and you've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and all these guys that can go down the field, and Baker Mayfield's playing well, seeing the field really well right now. At the same time, I don't know how the Buccaneers defense is going to stop what the Lions are doing right now. That's a concern for them. They have to be able to get pressure on Jared Goff and give him problems. That's really the only thing that's been able to slow them down. But the flip side of that is Detroit's running the ball really well.
Yes,
with the combination of their backs, and they're finally getting the value out of having Jahmyr Gibbs as that first round pick and being able to use him as a weapon. So I think Detroit probably edges it out in a shootout. I think, you could end up in a situation where, again, both quarterbacks throw for over 300 yards. It's just whoever has the ball last, maybe the one that wins it. But I think Detroit overall has a little bit more talent than Tampa.
And, if you're looking at if Tampa finds a way to win this in Green Bay, for God's sakes, beats San Francisco 49ers. You're talking about an NFC championship in Tampa Bay between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers. But the one, and, it's probably maybe a week too early, sadly. And it's not to discount Baltimore, but this is, obviously the playoff game everybody's grown accustomed to over the last couple of years. However, one caveat this year, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs will be traveling to Buffalo to face the Bills.
Yeah. I think turnovers are going to be the big thing for this one. The Chiefs play defense, and they're really good on defense. And Stephon Diggs has not produced in a way that you need him to. I think he's got 6 games in a row where he's been held under 90 yards or something like that. That's a problem. I mean, they're down weapons. Dalton Kincaid sure is nice. But if you are asking Josh Allen to you are asking him to be the total high-end outcome of the spectrum he's on, I think that's going to be really difficult to do in this game. He may have to win with his legs. There's no question that the Chiefs are going to have trouble offensively against the Bills' defense. I think that's going to be a slug, but I think they are going to be more equipped to hold on the ball, and having Isaiah Pacheco is going to be a big advantage for them. Certainly, Buffalo's running the ball better than they have in recent years. But I think the Chiefs are able to sit on the ground game and be a little bit more patient than the Bills are. I like the Chiefs based on the turnover element. But if Josh Allen keeps a clean sheet, I think that he will ultimately be able to carry this just on sheer star power.
Josh Allen is really, ever since the offense coordinator change, and Josh is at times his own worst enemy. A ball here and there. Obviously, you saw some in the Miami game to close out the regular season. At times, he's his own worst enemy. But, right now, I don't know if there's another quarterback in the NFL. Would you rather say, you want to know what? If you can get it done yourself, go ahead and get it done. And you think about the fact that, it's been really him and, Cook and Khalil Shakir are the guys that are getting it done for this team. It's not being facetious. It's not, trying to slight anybody. That's truly just been the case. Obviously, that, tight ends are big assets as well. It will be interesting to see. And, not that anything is huge to it, but this is literally the Kansas City Chiefs. This version of the Kansas City Chiefs. This is their first time playing a playoff game outside of home. I'm not saying that they're not used to playing on the road, but you certainly think there's something to that and how that plays out. So certainly something to watch for there. He is Pete Smith, obviously now part of the OBR, still obviously, has the show with Bree, the podcast with Bree. So make sure Browns Place, make sure you're checking that out. Pete is obviously doing a lot more video work. So make sure you're checking that out work and along with his written work over at the OBR. Always appreciate the time that we get together. Make sure you're following @_Pete Smith _ myself, your host, Jeff Lloyd. You guys know it's 7 seasons, transitioning to 8 here of Cleveland Browns coverage with you all in Locked On Browns. Absolutely love the gig. I will be here for as long as they will keep me. Appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd, it's simple. You don't need to know nobody. You don't need no redeem code. You don't need nothing. Just subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. 5-6 episodes a week minimum. You know it. You can count on it. You can bank on it. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.